left above the trash bin and stand back as the archway into Diagon Alley opened in the wall. Harry spent the long sunny days exploring the shops
as the ground tilted under her feet. All about her, Aiel contended with braying, sliding pack mules on a steep, rocky slope where nothing grew. Heat, remembered from Tel Run Riyadh, hammered her. The air shimmered before her eyes. The ground burned her feet through the soles of her shoes. Her skin prickled painfully for a moment, then sweat gushed from every pore. It only dampened her dress, and the sweat seemed to evaporate immediately. The struggling mules and tall Aiel nearly hid the surroundings from her, but she saw a bit in flashes between them. A thick grey stone column angled out of the ground not 3 paces from her, scoured by wind-blown sand, until there was no telling whether it had ever been twinned to the portal stone in tier. Rugged, slab-sided mountains that looked carved by a mad giant axe broiled beneath a blazing sun and cloudless sky. Yet in the center of the long, barren valley far below, a mass of dense fog hung, billowing like clouds. That scalding sun should surely have burned it off in moments, but the fog rolled untouched. And out of that roiling gray stuck the tops of towers, some spired, some ending abruptly as though the masons still worked. He was right, she murmured to herself. A city in clouds. Clutching his gelding's bridle, Matt was staring around wide-eyed. "We made it!" He laughed at her. "We made it, Egwene, and without any... Burn me, we made it." He tugged open his shirt laces at the neck. "Why, it's hot. Burn me for true." Abruptly, she realized Rand was on his knees, head down, supporting himself with one hand on the ground. Pulling her mare behind her, she pushed through the milling Aiel to him just as Lan helped him to his feet. Lorraine was already there, studying Rand and calm, and the slight tightness at the corners of her mouth that meant she would like to box his ears. "I did it," Rand panted, looking around. The warder was all that was holding him upright. His face was drained and drawn, like a man on his deathbed. "Came close," Lorraine said coolly, very coolly. "The Angreal was not sufficient to the task. You must not do this again. If you take chances, they must be reasoned and for a strong purpose. They must be." "I don't take chances, Lorraine. Matt's the fellow for chances." Rand forced his right hand open. The Angreal, the fat little man, had driven the point of its sword into his flesh, right into the branded hand. "Maybe you're right. Maybe I did need one a little stronger. A little bit, maybe." He gave a huffing laugh. "It worked, Lorraine. That is what's important. I've outrun them all. It worked." "That is what matters," Lan said, nodding. Egwene made a vexed man. One almost killed himself, then tried to make a joke of it, and another told him he had done the right thing. Did they never grow up? "The fatigue of channeling is not like the tiredness," Lorraine said. "I cannot rid you of it completely, not when you have channeled as much as you did, but I will do what I can. Perhaps what remains will remind you to be more careful in future." She was angry. There was a definite hint of satisfaction in her voice. The glow of Saidar surrounded the Aes Sedai as she reached up to take Rand's head in her hands. A shuddering gasp forced out of him, and he shivered uncontrollably, then jerked back from her, pulling free of Lan as well. "Lorraine," Rand said coldly, stuffing the Angreal into his belt pouch. "First, I'm not your pet dog that you can do whatever you want to, whenever you want." He scrubbed his hands together to rub away the tiny trickle of blood. Egwene made that vexed sound again. Childish and ungrateful. He could stand by himself now, those eyes still looked weary, and she did not have to see his palm to know the tiny puncture was gone, as if it had never been. Purely ungrateful. Surprisingly, Lan did not call him down for speaking to Lorraine in that fashion. It came came to her that the Aiel had gone absolutely still now that they had the mules quieted. They stared outward wearily, not toward the valley and the fog-shrouded city that must be Rhuidean, but at two camps, one to either side of them, perhaps half a mile away. The two clusters of dozens upon dozens of low, open-sided tents, one twice as large as the other, clung to the mountain slope and very nearly disappeared against it. But the gray-brown Aiel in each camp were clearly visible, short spears and arrow-nocked hornbows in hand, veiling themselves if they were not already. They seemed poised on the balls of their feet, ready to attack. "Peace of Rhuidean," a woman's voice called from upslope, and Egwene could feel the tension leaving the Aiel surrounding her. Those among the tents began lowering their veils, though they still watched cautiously. There was a third, much smaller encampment farther up the mountain, she realized, a few of the low tents on the small level path. 4 women were walking down from that camp, in dark bulky skirts and loose white blouses, with brown or gray shawls around their shoulders, despite heat that was beginning to make Egwene feel lightheaded, and many necklaces and bracelets of ivory and gold. 2 had white hair, one hair the color of the sun, flowing down their backs to the waist and held back from their faces by folded kerchiefs tied around the forehead. Egwene recognized one of the white-haired women, Amis, the wise one she had met in Tel Rhuidean. Again she was struck by the contrast between Amis's sun-darkened features and her snowy hair. The wise one just did not look old enough. The second white-haired woman had a creased, grandmotherly face, and one of the others, with gray-streaked dark hair, seemed almost as old. She was sure all 4 were wise ones, very likely the same who had signed that letter to Moiraine. The Aiel women stopped 10 paces upslope from the gathering around the portal stone, and the grandmotherly woman spread her open hands, speaking in an aged yet powerful voice. "The peace of Rhuidean be on you. Who comes to Cheander may return to their homes in peace. There shall be no blood on the ground." That the Aiel from Tyr began to separate, quickly apportioning the pack animals and the contents of the hampers. They were not dividing by societies now. Egwene saw maidens going in several groups, some of which immediately began making their way around, avoiding each other and the camps, peace of Rhuidean or no. Others strode toward one or the other large cluster of tents, where finally weapons were being put down. Not everyone had been sure of the peace of Rhuidean. Lan released the hilt of his still-sheathed sword, although Egwene had not seen him put his hands on it, and Mat hastily slipped a pair of knives back into his sleeves. Rand stood with his thumbs tucked behind his belt, but there was clear relief in his eyes. Egwene looked for Aviendha to ask a few questions before she approached Amis. Surely the Aiel woman would be a little more forthcoming about the wise ones here, in her own land. She spotted the maiden, carrying a large, clinking jute sack and 2 rolled wall hangings over her shoulder, as she started briskly for one of the big encampments. "You will stay, Aviendha," the wise one with gray streaks in her hair said loudly. Aviendha stopped in her tracks, not looking at anyone. Egwene started to go to her, but Moiraine murmured, "Best not interfere. I doubt she will want sympathy or see anything else if you offer it." Egwene nodded in spite of herself. Aviendha did look as if she wanted to be left alone. What did the wise one want with her? Had she broken some mold somewhere? She herself would not have minded some more company. She felt very exposed, standing there with no Aiel around her, and all those among the tents watching. The Aiel who had come from the stone had been courteous, even when not exactly friendly. The watchers looked neither. It was a temptation to embrace Saidar. Only Moiraine, serene and cool as ever despite perspiration on her face, and Lan, as unperturbed as the rocks around them, kept her from it. They would know if there was danger. As long as they accepted the situation, she would. But she did wish those Aiel would stop staring. Ruark climbed the slope with a smile. and come back, Elise. Though not by the way you expected, I will wager. I knew you would be here today, shade of my heart. She reached up to touch his cheek, letting her brown shawl fall down onto her arms. My sister wife sends her heart to you. That's what she meant about dreaming, Egwene said softly to Moiraine. Lan was the only other close enough to hear. That's why you were willing to let Rand try to bring us here by portal stone. They knew about it and told you in that letter. If they had mentioned a portal stone, you wouldn't have tried talking them out of it. They knew we'd be here then. Moiraine nodded without taking her eyes from the wise ones. They wrote that they would meet us here on Chandler today. I thought it unlikely until Rand mentioned the stones. When he was sure, certain beyond my dissuading, that one existed here, let us just say, it suddenly seemed very likely we would reach Chandler today. Egwene took a deep breath of hot air. So that was one of the things dreams could do. She could not wait to start learning. She wanted to go after Rhuarc and introduce herself to Amis, reintroduce herself. But Rhuarc and Amis were looking into one another's eyes in a way that excluded intruders. A man had come out from each of the camps, one tall and broad-shouldered, plain hair, and still short of his middle years, the other older and darker, no less tall but more slender. They stopped a few paces to either side of Rhuarc and the wise ones. The older, leathery-faced man carried no visible weapon except his heavy-bladed belt knife, but the other carried spears and hide buckler, and held his head high with a fiercely prideful scowl directed at Rhuarc. Rhuarc ignored him, turning to the older man. I see you, Hire. Has one of the Sept chiefs decided I am already dead? Who seeks to take my place? I see you, Rhuarc. No one of the Tardat has entered Rhuidean or seeks to. Amis said she would come meet you here today, and these other wise ones traveled with her. I brought these men of the Jindon Sept to see they arrived safely. Rhuarc nodded solemnly. Egwene had the feeling something important had just been said or hinted at. The wise ones did not look at the fiery-haired man, and neither did Rhuarc or Hire, but from the color rising in the fellow's cheeks, they might as well have been staring at him. She glanced at Moiraine and got a tiny shake of the head. The Aes Sedai did not understand either. Lan leaned down between them, speaking quietly. A wise one can go anywhere safely, into any hold regardless of time. I think not even Bloodstream touches a wise one. This Hiram came to protect Rhuarc from whoever the other camp is, but it would not be honorable to say it. Moiraine lifted one eyebrow trifle and added, I don't know much of them, but I fought them often before I met you. You have never asked me about that. I will never get them, the Aes Sedai said dryly. Turning back to the wise ones and the three men made Egwene's head swim. Lan pushed an unstoppered leather water bottle into her hands, and she tilted her head back to drink frankly. The water was lukewarm and smelled of leather, but in the heat it tasted fresh from the spring. She offered the half-empty bottle to Moiraine, who drank sparingly and handed it back. Egwene was glad to gulp down the rest, closing her eyes. Water splashed over her head, and she opened them again quickly. Lan was emptying another water bottle over her, and Moiraine's hair already dripped. This heat can kill if you are not used to it, the warder explained, as he wet down a pair of plain white linen scarves pulled from his coat. At his instructions, she and Moiraine tied the soaked cloths around their foreheads. Rand and Mat were doing the same. Lan left his own head unprotected to the sun. Nothing seemed to faze the man. Silence between Rhuarc and the Aiel men with him had stretched out, but the clan chief finally turned to the flame-haired men. Do the Shaido lack a clan chief then? Muradin? Roderick is dead, the man answered. Muradin has entered Rhuidean. Should you fail, I will enter. You have not asked, Muradin, the grandmotherly wise one said in that weedy yet strong voice. Should Muradin fail, ask then. We are four, enough to say yes or no. It is my right, Muladin said angrily. He had the look of a man not used to being balked. It is your right to ask, the thin-voiced woman replied. It is ours to answer. I do not think you will be allowed to enter whatever happens to Muradin. You are clawed within, Muladin. She shifted her grey shawl, rewrapping it around her angular shoulders in a way that suggested she had said more than she considered necessary. The flame-haired man's face grew red. My first brother will return marked as clan chief, and we will lead the Shido to great honor. We mean to... He snapped his mouth shut, almost quivering. Egwene thought she would keep an eye on him if he remained anywhere close to her. He reminded her of the Kongars and the Coplans back home, full of ghosts and trouble. She had certainly never before seen any Aiel display so much raw emotion. Amis seemed to have dismissed him already. There is one who came with you, Mulan, she said. Egwene expected the woman to speak to her, but Amis's eyes swept straight to Rand. Moiraine was obviously not surprised. Egwene wondered what had been in that letter from these four wise ones that the Aes Sedai had not revealed. Rand looked taken aback for a moment, hesitating, but then he strode up the slope to stand near Ruark at eye level to the women. Sweat plastered his white shirt to his body and made darker patches on his breeches. With a twisted white cloth tied around his head, he certainly did not look so grand as he had in the heart of the stone. He made an odd bow, left foot advanced, left hand on knee, right hand outstretched, palm upward. For the right of blood, he said, I ask leave to enter Rhuidean, for the honor of our ancestors and the memory of what was. Anis blinked in evident surprise, and there murmured, an ancient form, but the question has been asked. I answer yes. I also answer yes, Anis said. Diana, this man is no Aiel, Muladin broke in angrily. Egwene suspected he was very nearly always angry. It is death for him to be on this ground. Why has Ruark brought him? Why? Do you wish to be a wise one, Muladin? Bear asked, a frown deepening the creases on her face. Put on a dress, come to me, and I will see if you can be trained. Until then, be silent when wise ones speak. The mother was Aiel, Rand said in a strange voice. Egwene stared at him. Kari Althor had died while Egwene was barely out of her cradle, but if Tam's wife had been Aiel, Egwene would certainly have heard it. She glanced at Moiraine. The Aes Sedai was watching, smooth-faced. Rand did look a great deal like the Aiel men, with his height and grey-blue eyes and reddish hair, but this was ridiculous. Not your mother, Anis said slowly. Your father. Egwene shook her head. This approached the man. Rand opened his mouth, but Anis did not let him speak. Diana, how do you say? Yes, the woman with grey streaked hair said. Melaine, the last of the four, a handsome woman with golden red hair, no more than 10 or 15 years older than Egwene, hesitated. It must be done, she said finally, and unwillingly. I answered yes. You have been answered, Anis told Rand. You may go into Rhuidean, and she cut off and scrambled up to copy Rand's vow. I also ask to enter Rhuidean, he said, shaking. The four wise ones stared at him. Rand's head whipped around in surprise. Egwene thought no one could be more shocked than she was, but Muladin proved her wrong. Lifting one of his spears with a snarl, he stabbed at Nap's chest. The glow of Saidar surrounded Anis and Melaine, and flows of air lifted the fiery-haired man and flung him back a dozen paces. Egwene stared, wide-eyed. They could chant. At least two of them could. Suddenly, Amis's ruefully smooth features beneath that white hair leaped out at her for what they were. Something very close to Aes Sedai agelessness. Moiraine was absolutely still. Egwene could almost hear her thoughts buzzing, though. This was plainly as much of a surprise to the Aes Sedai as to herself. Kaladin scrambled to his feet in a crouch. "You accept this outlander as one of us," he rapped, pointing at Rand with the spear he had attempted to use on Mat. "If you say it, then so be it. He is still a soft wetlander, and Roydion will kill him." The spear swung to Mat, who was trying to slip the knife back up his sleeve without being noticed. "But it is death for him to be here, and sacrilege for him to even ask to enter Roydion. None but those of the blood may enter. None." "Go back to your tents, Couladin," Melaine said coldly. "And you, Iron, and you as well, Ruark. This is business of wise ones, and none of men, save those who have asked. Go." Ruark and Iron nodded and walked away toward the smaller set of tents, talking together. Couladin glared at Rand and Mat and at the wise ones before jerking around and stalking off toward the larger camp. The wise ones exchanged glances. Troubled glances, Egwene would have said, though they were almost as good as Aes Sedai at keeping their faces blank when they wanted to. "It's not permitted," Amis said finally. "Young man, you do not know what you have done. Go back with you." Her eyes blushed across Egwene and Moiraine and Lan, standing alone now with the horses near the wind-scoured cobblestone. Egwene could not find any recognition for her in that glance. "I can't," Mat sounded desperate. "I've come this far, but this doesn't count, does it? I have to go to Roydia." "It is not permitted," Melaine said sharply, her long red-gold hair swinging as she shook her head. "You have no Aiel blood in your veins." Rand had been studying Mat all this time. "He comes with me," he said suddenly. "You gave me permission, and he can come with me whether you say he can or not." He stared back at the wise ones, not defiantly, merely determined, set in his mind. Egwene knew him like this. He would not back down, whatever they said. "It is not permitted," Melaine said firmly, addressing her sisters. She pulled her shawl up to cover her head. "The law is clear. No woman may go to Roydion more than twice, no man more than once, and none at all save they have the blood of Aiel." Tiana shook her head. "Much is changing, Lily. The old ways, if he is the one," Bear said. "The time of change is upon us. Aes Sedai stand on Cheandare, and on aligned with his shifting cloak. Can we hold to the old ways, knowing how much is to change?" "We cannot hold," Amis said. "All stand on the edge of change now. Melaine." The golden-haired woman looked at the mountains around them and the fog-shrouded city below, then sighed and nodded. "It is done," Amis said, turning to Rand and Mat. "You," she began, then paused. "By what name do you call yourself?" "Rand al'Thor." Mat Poppin." Amis nodded. "You, Rand al'Thor, must go into the heart of Roydia, to the very center. If you wish to go with him, Mat Poppin, so be it. But know that most men who enter Roydion's heart do not come back, and some return back. You may carry neither food nor water, in remembrance of our wanderings after the breaking. You must go to Roydion unarmed, save with your hands and your own heart, to honor the Jinn. If you have weapons, place them on the ground before us. They will be here for you when you return, if you return." And unsheathed his belt knife and laid it at Amis's feet, then, after a moment, added the green stone carving at the round of a man. "That is the best I can do," he said. Mat began with his belt knife and kept right on, pulling knives from his sleeves and under his coat, even one from down the back of his neck, fashioning a pile that seemed to impress even the Aiel woman. He made as if to stop, looked at the women, then took two more from each boot top. "I forgot them," he said with a grin and shrug. The wise woman's unblinking looks wiped his grin away. "They are pledged to Roydia," Amis said formally, looking over the men's heads, and the other three responded together. Guardian belongs to the dead. They may not speak to the living until they return, she intoned, and again the others answered. The dead do not speak to the living. We do not see them until they stand among the living once more. Amis drew her shawl across her eyes, and one by one the other three did the same. Faces hidden, they spoke in unison. Begone from among the living, and do not haunt us with memories of what is lost. Speak not of what the dead see. Silent then they stood there, holding their shawls up, waiting. Hand and Matt looked at one another. Egwene wants to go to them, speak to them. They wore the fixed, too steady faces of men who did not want anyone to know they were uneasy or afraid. But that might break the ceremony. Finally, Matt walked around. Well, I suppose the dead can talk to each other at least. I wonder if this counts for... No. Do you suppose it's all right if we ride? I don't think so, Rand said. I think we have to run. Oh, burn my aching feet. We might as well get on with it then. It'll take half the afternoon just to get there, if we're lucky. Rand gave Egwene a reassuring smile as they started down the mountain, as if to convince her there was no danger, nothing untoward. Matt's grin was the sort he wore when doing something particularly foolish, like trying to dance on the peak of a roof. You aren't going to do anything crazy, are you? Matt said. I mean to come back alive. So do I, Rand replied. So do I. They passed from hearing, growing smaller and smaller as they descended. When they had dwindled to tiny shapes, barely distinguishable as the wise ones lowered their shawls. Straightening her dress and wishing she were not so sweaty, Egwene climbed the short distance to them, leading Mist. Amis, I'm Egwene Alvear. You said I should... Amis cut her off with a raised hand, and looked to where Lan was leading Mandarb and Pips and Giadrin behind Moiraine and Alvin. This is women's business now, Anna Line. You must stand aside. Go to the tents. Ruark will offer you water and shade. Lan waited for Moiraine's slight nod before bowing and walking off in the direction Ruark had gone. The shifting cloak hanging down his back sometimes gave him the appearance of a disembodied head and arms floating across the ground ahead of the three horses. Do you call him that? Moiraine asked when he was out of earshot. Do you know him? We know of him, Aes Sedai. Amis made the title sound an address between equals. The last of the Malkir, a man who will not give up his war against the Shadow, though his nation is long destroyed by it. There is much honor in him. I knew from the dream that if you came, it was almost certain Anna Line would as well, but I did not know he obeyed you. He is my warder, Moiraine said simply. Egwene thought the Aes Sedai was troubled despite her tone, and she knew why. Almost certain Lan would come with Moiraine? Lan always followed Moiraine. He would follow her into the pit of doom without thinking. Nearly as interesting as Egwene was, if you came. Had the wise ones known they were coming or not? Perhaps interpreting the dream was not as straightforward as she hoped. She was about to ask when Bear spoke. Avienda, come here. Avienda had been squatting disconsolately off to one side, arms wrapped around her knees, staring at the ground. She stood slowly. If Egwene had not known better, she would have thought the other woman was afraid. Avienda's feet dragged as she climbed to where the wise ones stood and set her bag and rolled wall hangings at her feet. It is time, Bear said, not ungently. Still, there was no compromise in her pale blue eyes. You have run with the spears as long as you can. Longer, should. Avienda flung up her head defiantly. I am a maiden of the spear. I do not want to be a wise one. I will not be. The wise one's faces hardened. Egwene was reminded of the women's circle back home, confronting a woman who was heading off into some foolishness. You have already been treated more gently than was in my day, Amis said in a voice like stone. I too refused when called. My spear sisters broke my spears before my eyes. They took me to Bear and Codeline, bound hand and foot and wearing only my skin. And the pretty little doll tucked under your arm, Bear said dryly, to remind you how childish you were. As I remember, you ran away 9 times in the first month. Anise nodded grimly, and was made to blubber like a child for each of them. I only ran away 5 times the second month. I thought I was as strong and hard as a woman could be. I was not smart. It took me half a year to learn you were stronger and harder than I could ever be, Bear. Eventually, I learned my duty, my obligation to the people, as you will, Avienda. Such as you and I, we have that obligation. You are not a child. It is time to put away dolls and spears and become the woman you are meant to be. Abruptly, Egwene knew why she had felt such a kinship with Avienda from the first, knew why Amis and the others meant her to be a wise one. Avienda could channel. Like herself, like Elaine and Nynaeve, and Moiraine for that matter, she was one of those rare women who not only could be taught to channel, but who had the ability born in her, so she would touch the true source eventually, whether she knew what she was doing or not. Moiraine's face was still, calm, but Egwene saw confirmation in her eyes. The Aes Sedai had surely known from the first time she came within arm's reach of the Aiel woman. Egwene realized she could feel that same kinship with Amis and Melaine. Not with Bear or Sienna, though. Only the first two could channel. She was sure of it. And now she could sense the same in Moiraine. It was the first time she had ever felt that. The Aes Sedai was a distant woman. Some of the wise ones, at least, apparently saw more in Moiraine's face. You meant to take her to your White Tower, Bear said, to make her one of you. She is Aiel, Aes Sedai. She can be very strong if she is trained properly, Moiraine replied. As strong as Egwene will be. In the tower she can reach that strength. Can teach her as well, Aes Sedai. Elaine's voice was smooth enough, but contempt tinged her unwavering green-eyed stare. Better, I have spoken with Aes Sedai. You coddle women in the tower. The threefold land is no place for coddling. Avienda will learn what she can do, and you would still have her playing games. Egwene gave Avienda a concerned look. The other woman was staring at her feet, defiance gone. If you thought training in the tower was coddling, she had been worked harder and disciplined more strictly as a novice than ever before in her life. She felt a true pang of sympathy for the Aiel woman. Amis held out her hands, and Avienda reluctantly laid her spears and buckler in them, flinching when the wise one threw them aside, and on the ground. Slowly, Avienda slid her cased bow from her back and surrendered it, unbuckled the belt holding her quiver and sheathed knife. Amis took each offering and tossed it away like rubbish. Avienda gave a little jerk each time. A tear trembled at the corner of one blue-green eye. You don't have to treat her this way, Egwene demanded angrily. Amis and the others turned flat stares on her, but she was not about to be intimidated. You are treating things she cares about as trash. She must see them as trash, Sienna said. When she returns, if she returns, she will burn them and scatter the ashes. The metal she will give to a smith to make simple things, not weapons, not even a carving knife. Buckles, pots, or puzzles for children. Things she will give away with her own hands when they are made. The threefold land is not soft, Aes Sedai, Bear said. Soft things die here. The cut-in soul, Avienda. Amis gestured to the discarded weapons. Your new clothes will await your return. Mechanically, Avienda stripped, tossing coat and breeches, soft boots, everything onto the fire. Naked, she stood without moving a toe, though Egwene thought her own feet would bluster through her shoes. She remembered watching as the clothes she had worn to the White Tower were burned, a severing of ties to an earlier life, but it had not been like this. Not this stark. Navienda started to add the sack and the wall hangings to the pile. Ziana took them from her. These you can have back, if you return. If not, they will go to your family for
I'll be right back, everyone.
Navienda nodded. She did not seem afraid, reluctant, angry, even sullen, but not afraid. Avoiding, Amis said. You will find 3 rings arranged so. She drew 3 lines in the air, joining together in the middle. Step through any one. You will see your future laid before you again and again in variation. They will not guide you wholly, as is best, for they will fade together as do stories heard long ago. Yet you will remember enough to know some things that must be for you, despised as they may be, and some that must not, cherished hopes that they are. This is the beginning of being called life. Some women never return from the rings. Perhaps they could not face the future. Some who survive the rings do not survive their second trip to Roidia, to the heart. You are not giving up a hard and dangerous life for a softer, but for a harder and more dangerous. Terangrial. Amis was describing Terangrial. What kind of place was this, Roidia? Egwene found herself wanting to go down there herself to find out. That was foolish. She was not here to take unnecessary risks with Terangrial she knew nothing about. Melaine cupped Avienda's chin and turned the younger woman's face to her. You have the strength, she said with quiet conviction. A strong mind and a strong heart are your weapons now, but you hold them as surely as you ever held a spear. Remember them. You will they will see you through. Jane was surprised. Of the 4, she would have picked the sun-haired woman last before compassion. Avienda nodded, and even managed to smile. They will beat those men to Roidia. They cannot run. Each wise one in turn kissed her lightly on each cheek, murmuring. Touching Avienda's hand, Egwene squeezed it, and got a squeeze in return. Then the Aiel woman was running down the mountainside in leaps. It seemed she might well catch up to Rand and Mat. Egwene watched her go worriedly. This was something like being raised to accept it, it seemed, but without any novice training first, without anyone to give small comfort after. What would it have been like to be raised accepted on her first day in the tower? She thought she might have gone mad. Nynaeve had been raised so because of her strength. She thought at least some of Nynaeve's distaste for Aes Sedai came from what she had experienced then. Come back to us, she thought. Be steadfast. When Avienda passed out of sight, Egwene sighed and turned back to the wise ones. She had her own purpose here, and holding back from it would not move. Amis, in Tel Aramriad, you told me I should come to you to learn. I have. Yes, the white-haired woman said. We have been hasty, because Avienda struggled so long against our foe, because we feared the Shider might don veils, even here, if we did not send Rand al'Thor into Roidia before they could think. You believe they'd have tried to kill him? Egwene said. But he's the one you sent people over the Dragon Wall to find. He who comes with the dawn. Vale shifted her shawl. Perhaps he is. We shall see. If he is. Has his mother's eyes, Amis said, and much of her in his face, as well as something of his father. But Couladin could see only his clothes and his person. The other Shido would have as well, and perhaps the Tardog too. Outlanders are not allowed on this ground, and now there are 5 of you. No, 4. Rand al'Thor is no outlander, wherever he was raised. But we have already allowed one to enter Roidia, which is also forbidden. Change comes like an avalanche, whether he wants it or not. It must come, Bear said, not sounding heavy. The matter plants us as Rand's parents? Egwene asked cautiously. Whatever they said, She still thought of Tam and Kari Al-4 as Rand's parents. That is his gift, Amis said, if he wants to hear it. By the firmness of her mouth, she would not say another word on the subject. Come, Bear said. There is no need for haste now. Come, we offer you water and shade. Plain wheeze nearly muffled the mention of shade. The once stopping kerchief around her forehead was almost dry. The top of her head felt baked, and the rest of her scarcely less. Moiraine seemed just as grateful to follow the wise ones up to one of the small clusters of low, open-sided tents. A tall man in sandals and hooded white robes took their horses' reins. His Aiel face looked odd in the deep, soft cowl, with downcast eyes. Give the animals water, Bear said, before ducking into the low, unwalled tent, and the man bowed to her back, touching his forehead. Egwene hesitated over letting the man lead Mist away. He seemed confident, but what would an Aiel know of horses? Still, she did not think he would harm them, and it did look wonderfully darker inside the tent. It was, and delightfully cool compared to outside. The roof of the tent rose 2 feet around the pole, but even under that there was barely room to stand. As if to make up for the drab colors the Aiel wore, large gold-tasseled red cushions lay scattered over brightly colored carpets, layered thickly enough to pad the hard ground beneath. Egwene and Moiraine imitated the wise ones, sinking to the carpet and leaning on one elbow on a cushion. They were all in a circle, nearly close enough to touch the next woman. Bear struck a small brass gong, and 2 young women entered with silver trays, bending gracefully, robed in white, with deep cowls and down-turned eyes, like the man who had taken the horses. Kneeling in the middle of the tent, one filled a small silver cup with wine for each of the women reclining on a cushion, and the other poured larger cups of water. Without a word, they backed out, bowing, leaving the gleaming trays and pitchers beaded with condensation. Here is water and shade, Bear said, lifting her water. Freely given. Let there be no constraints between us. All here are welcome, as first sisters are welcome. Let there be no constraints, Amis and the other 2 murmured. After 1 sip of water, the Aiel women named themselves formally. Bear of the Hydo sept of the Sharad Aiel, Amis of the 9 Valleys sept of the Tardad Aiel, Melaine of the Jirad sept of the Goshin Aiel, Tiana of the Black Cliff sept of the Nakai Aiel. Egwene and Moiraine followed the ritual, though Moiraine's mouth tightened when Egwene called herself an Aes Sedai of the Green Object. As if the sharing of water and names had broken down the wall, the mood in the tent changed palpably. Smiles from the Aiel women, a subtle relaxation, and said formalities were done. Egwene was more grateful for the water than for the wine. It might be cooler in the tent than outside, but just breathing still dried her throat. At Amis's gesture, she eagerly poured a second cup. The people in white had been a surprise. It was foolish, but she realized she had been thinking that except for the wise ones, Aiel were all like Rhuarc and Aviendha, warriors. Of course they had blacksmiths and weavers and other craftsmen. They must. Why not servants? Only Aviendha had been disdainful of the servants in stone, not letting them do anything for her that she could avoid. These people, with their humble demeanor, did not act like Aiel at all. She did not recall seeing any white in the 2 large camps. Is it only wise ones who have servants? She asked. Melaine choked on her wine. Servants? She gasped. They are Daishine, not servants. She sounded as if that should explain everything. Moiraine frowned slightly over her wine. Daishine? How does that translate? Those sworn to peace in battle? They are simply Daishine, Amis said. She seemed to realize they did not understand. Forgive me, but do you know of Ji'ito? Honor and obligation, Moiraine replied promptly. Or perhaps honor and duty. Those are the words, yes, but the meaning. We live by Ji'ito, Aes Sedai. Do not try to tell them all, Amis, Bear cautioned. I once spent a month trying to explain Ji-Ito to a wetlander, and at the end she had more questions than at the beginning. Amis, I will stay to the pool. If you wish to explain, Moiraine. Egwene would as soon have begun talk of dreaming and training, but to her irritation the Aes Sedai said, Yes, if you will. With a nod to Moiraine, Amis began. I will follow the line of Gai'Shine simply. In the Dance of Spears, the most Ji honor is earned by touching an armed enemy without killing or harming in any way. Most honor because it is so difficult, Lyanna said, bluish gray eyes crinkling wryly, and thus so seldom. The smallest honor comes from killing, Amis continued. A child or a fool can kill. In between is the taking of a captive. I pare it down, you see. There are many degrees. Gai'Shine are captives taken, so, though a warrior who has been touched may sometimes demand to be taken Gai'Shine, to reduce his enemy's honor and his own loss. Maidens of the spear and stone dogs especially are known for this, Lyanna put in, bringing a sharp look from Amis. Do I tell them, or do you? Who continued? Some may not be taken Gai'Shine, a wise one, a blacksmith, a child, a woman with child, or one who has a child under the age of 10. A Gai'Shine has told to his or her captor. For Gai'Shine, this is to serve 1 year and a day, obeying humbly, touching no weapon, doing no violence. Egwene was interested in spite of herself. Don't they try to escape? I certainly would. Never let anyone make me a prisoner again. The wise ones looked shocked. It happened, Lyanna said stiffly, but there is no honor in it. A Gai'Shine who ran away would be returned by his or her sept to begin the year and day anew. The loss of honor is so great that a first brother or first sister might go as Gai'Shine as well to discharge the sept's toll. More than one, if they feel the loss of Jip is great. Moiraine seemed to be taking it all in calmly, sipping her water, but it was all Egwene could do not to shake her head. The Aiel were insane. That was all there was to it. It got worse. Some Gai'Shine now make an arrogance of humbleness, Melaine said disapprovingly. They think they earn honor by it, taking obedience and meekness to the point of mockery. This is a new thing and foolish. It has no part in Ji-Ito. Bear laughed, a startling rich sound compared to her reedy voice. There have always been fools. When I was a girl and the Sharad and the Tomanel were stealing each other's cattle and goats every night, Chenda, the roof mistress of Minded Cut, was pushed aside by a young Hydo water seeker during a raid. She came to Bent Valley and demanded the boy make her Gai'Shine. She would not allow him to gain the honor of having touched her, because she had a carving knife in her hands when he did. A carving knife. It was a weapon, she claimed, as if she were a maiden. The boy had no choice but to do as she demanded, for all the laughter when he did. One day, send the roof mistress barefoot back to her hold. Before the year and the day was done, the Hydo sept and the Jenda sept exchanged spears, and the boy soon found himself married to Chenda's eldest daughter, with his second mother still Gai'Shine to him. He tried to give her to his wife as part of his bride gift, and both women claimed he was trying to rob them of honor. He nearly had to take his own wife as Gai'Shine. It came close to raiding between Hydo and Jenda again before the toe was discharged. The Aiel women almost fell over laughing, Amis and Melaine wiping their eyes. Egwene understood little of the story, certainly not why it was funny, but she managed the polite laugh. Moiraine set her water aside for the small silver cup of wine. I have heard men speak of fighting the Aiel, but I have never heard this. Certainly not of an Aiel surrendering because he was touched. It is not surrender, Amis said firmly. It is Ji-Ito. No one would ask to be made Gai'Shine to a wetlander, Melaine said. Outlanders do not know of Ji-Ito. The Aiel women exchanged looks. They were uncomfortable. Why? Egwene wondered. Oh, to the Aiel, not to know Ji'ito must be like not knowing manners or not being honorable. There are honorable men and women among us, Egwene said. Most of us. We know right from wrong. Bear murmured, in a tone that said that was not the same thing at all. You sent a letter to me in Tyr, Moiraine said, before I ever reached there. You said a great many things, some of which have proven true, including that I must meet you here today. You very nearly commanded me to be here. Yet earlier you said, if I came. How much of what you wrote did you know to be true? Anise sighed and set aside her cup of wine, but it was Bear who spoke. Much is uncertain, even to a dream walker. Anise and Verlaine are the best of us, and even they do not see all that is or all that can be. The present is much clearer than the future, even in Tel Aramriad, the sun-haired wise one said. What is happening or beginning is more easily seen than what will happen or may. We did not see Egwene or Mat Cauthon at all. It was no more than an even chance that the young man who calls himself Randall Thor would come. If he did not, it was certain that he would die, and the Aiel too. Yet he has come, and if he survives Rhuidean, some of the Aiel at least will survive. This we know. If you had not come, he would have died. If Anna Line had not come, you would have died. If you do not go through the ring, she cut off as if she had bitten her tongue. Egwene leaned forward intently. Moiraine had to enter Rhuidean, but the Aes Sedai appeared to give no notice, and
We'll be
Siana
right back, everyone.
to cover Moraine's slip. There is no one set path for the future. The pattern makes the finest mates look coarse woven sacking or tangled string. In Tel Aramriad, it is possible to see somebody's future may be woven, no more than that. Moiraine took a sip of wine. The old tongue is often difficult to translate. Egwene stared at her. The old tongue? What about the rings? The ter'angreal? But Moiraine went blithely on. Tel Aramriad means the world of dreams, or perhaps the unseen world. Neither is really exact. It is more complex than that. Anna Line, one man, but also the man who is an entire people, and 2 or 3 other ways to translate it as well. And the words we have taken for common use and never think of their meanings in the old tongue. Warders are called Gaidin, which was brothers to battle. Aes Sedai meant servant of all, and Aiel, dedicated in the old tongue, stronger than that. It implies an oath to your bones. I have often wondered what the Aiel are dedicated to. The wise one's faces had gone to iron, but Moiraine continued, and Jen, the true dedicated, but again stronger. Perhaps the only true dedicated. The true Aiel? She looked at them questioningly, just as if they did not suddenly have eyes of stone. None of them. It was Moiraine. Egwene did not intend to allow the Aes Sedai to ruin her chances of learning whatever the wise ones could teach her. Anise, could we talk of dreaming now? Tonight, Anise said. But tonight, Egwene, you may be Aes Sedai, but you must become a pupil again. You cannot even go to sleep when you wish, or sleep lightly enough to tell what you see before you wake. When the sun begins to set, I will begin to teach you. Ducking her head, Egwene peered under the edge of her tent roof. From that deep shade, the light outside glared piercingly through heat shimmers in the air. The sun stood no more than halfway to the mountain tops. Abruptly, Moiraine rose to her knees. Reaching behind her, she began undoing her dress. I presume that I must go as Aviendha did, she said, not as a question. Bear gave Melaine a hard stare that the younger woman met only for a moment before dropping her eyes. Siana said in a resigned voice, You should not have been told. It is done now. change. One knot of the blood has gone to Roydian, and now another. Moraine paused. Does that make a difference that I've been told? Perhaps a great difference, Bear said reluctantly. Perhaps none. We often guide, but we do not tell. When we saw you go to the rings, each time it was you who brought up going, who demanded the right, though you have none of the blood. Now one of us has mentioned it first. Already there are changes from anything we saw. Who can say what they are? And what did you see if I do not go? Bear's wrinkled face was expressionless, but sympathy touched her pale blue eyes. We have told too much already, Moraine. What a dreamwalker sees is what is likely to happen, not what surely will. Those who move with too much knowledge of the future inevitably find disaster, whether from complacency at what they think must come, or in their efforts to change it. It is the mercy of the rings that the memories fade, Anis said. A woman knows some things, a few that will happen. Others she will not recognize until the decision is upon her, if then. Life is uncertainty and struggle, choice and change. One who knew how her life was woven into the pattern as well as she knew how a thread was laid into a carpet would have the life of an animal if she did not go mad. Humankind is made for uncertainty, struggle, choice, and change. Moraine listened with no outward show of impatience, though Egwene suspected it was there. The Aes Sedai was used to lecturing, not being lectured. She was silent while Egwene helped her out of her dress, not speaking until she crouched naked at the edge of the carpet. The mountainside, the crowded city in the village. She said, "Do not let Lan follow me. He will fly if he sees me. It will be as it will be," Bear replied. His voice sounded cold. After a moment, Bear gave a grudging nod and slipped out of the tent into the blazing sunlight. She began to run immediately, barefoot down the scorching slope. Egwene grimaced. Rand and Mat, Aviendha, now Moraine, all going into Roydian. Will she survive? If you dreamed of this, you must know. There are some places one cannot enter in Tel Iran, Siona said. Roydian, Ogier City. What happened was shielded from a dreamwalker's view. That was not an answer. They could have seen whether she came out of Roydian, but it was obviously all she was going to get. Very well. Should I go too? She did not relish the thought of experiencing the rings. It would be like being raised to accept it again. But if everyone else was going, do not be foolish, Amis said vigorously. We saw nothing of this for you, Bear added in a milder tone. We did not see you at all. And I would not say yes if you asked, Amis went on. 4 are required for permission, and I would say no. You are here to learn to dream. In that case, Egwene said, settling back on her cushion, teach me. There must be something you can begin with before tonight. Melaine frowned at her, but Bear chuckled dryly. She is as eager and impatient as you were once you decided to learn, Amis. Amis nodded. I hope she can keep her eagerness and lose the impatience for her sake. Hear me, Egwene. Though it will be hard, you must forget that you are Aes Sedai if you are to learn. You must listen, remember, and do as you are told. Above all, you must not enter Tel'aran'rhiod again until one of us says you may. Accept this. It would not be hard to forget she was Aes Sedai when she was not. For the rest, it sounded ominously like becoming a novice again. I can accept it. She hoped she did not sound doubtful. Good, Bear said. I will now tell you about dream walking and Tel'aran'rhiod in a very general way. When I am done, you will ask me what I have said. If you fail to touch all points, you will scrub the pot in place of the Gaishain tonight. If your memory is so poor that you cannot repeat what I say after a second hearing, well, we We will discuss that when it happens. Attend. Almost anyone can touch Tel Riyadh, but few can truly enter. Of all the wise ones, we four alone can dreamwalk, and your tower has not produced a dreamwalker in nearly 500 years. It is not a thing of the one power, though Aes Sedai believe it is. I cannot channel, nor can Sienna, yet we dreamwalk as well as Amis or Malaine. Many people brush the world of dreams in their sleep. Because they only brush against it, they wake with aches or pains where they should have broken bones or missed hurt. A dreamwalker enters the dream fully, therefore her injuries are real on waking. For one who is fully in the dream, dreamwalker or not, death there is death here. To enter the dream too completely, though, is to lose touch with the flesh. There is no way back, and flesh ends. It is said that once there were those who could enter the dream in the flesh and no longer be in this world at all. This was an evil thing, for they did evil. It must never be attempted, even if you believe it possible for you, for each time you will lose some part of what makes you human. You must learn to enter Tel Riyadh when you wish, to the degree you wish. You must learn to find what you need to find and read what you see, to enter the dreams of another close by in order to aid healing, to recognize those who are in the dream fully enough to harm you, to... Egwene listened intently. It fascinated her, hinting at things she had never suspected were possible. But beyond that, she had no intention of ending up scrubbing pots. It did not seem fair, somehow. Whatever Rand and Mat and the others faced in Rhuidean, they were not going to be sent off to scrub pots. And I agreed to it. It just was not fair. But then she doubted they could get any more out of Rhuidean than she would from these women.
24. Rhuidean. Your stubble in Mac's mouth was not making moisture anymore, and had not been for some time. Spitting it out, he squatted beside Rand and stared at the billowing gray wall, maybe 30 paces in front of him. Fall. He hoped at least it was cooler in there than out here, and some water would be appreciated. His lips were cracking. He pulled the scarf from around his head and wiped his face. There was not much sweat to dampen the fog. Not much sweat remained in him to come out. A place to sit down. His feet felt like cooked sausages inside his boots. Felt pretty well cooked all over, for that matter. The fog stretched left and right, better than a mile, and bulked over his head like a towering cliff. A cliff of thick mist in the middle of a barren, blistered valley. There had to be water. Why didn't it burn off? Not like that part of it. Fooling with the power had brought him here. Now it seemed he had to fool with it again. Be free of the power, and Aes Sedai. Burn me, I do. Anything not to think of stepping into that fog for just a minute more. It was Egwene's Aiel friend I saw running, he broke. His feet. Just thinking of it made his feet hurt worse. Aviendha, whatever her name is. You say so, Rand said, steadying the fog. He sounded as if he had a mouthful of dust. His face was sunburned, and he wavered unsteadily in his crouch. But what would she be doing down here? And naked? I let it go. Rand had not seen her. He had hardly taken his eyes off the roiling mist since starting down the mountain. And he did not believe Mat had seen her either. Running like a madwoman and keeping wide at the two of them. Heading for this strange fog, it had seemed to him. And appeared no more eager to step into that than he was. He wondered whether he looked as bad as Rand did. Touching his cheek, he winced. He expected he did. Are we going to stay out here all night? This valley is pretty deep. It'll be dark down here, and might be cooler then. But I don't think I would like to meet whatever runs around this place in the night. Lions, probably. I've heard there are lions in the waste. Are you sure you want to do this, Mat? You heard what the wise one said. You can die in there or go mad. You can make it back to the tents. You left water bottles and a water bag at Pip's saddle. Wished Rand had not reminded him. Best not to think about water. Burn me, no, I don't want to. I have to. What about you? Isn't being the bloody dragon reborn enough for you? You have to be a flaming Aiel clan chief, too? Why are you here? I have to be, Matt. I have to be. Resignation came through the parch in his voice, but something else, too. Hint of eagerness. The man really was mad. He wanted to do this. Rand, maybe that's the answer they give everybody. Those snake people, I mean. Go to Radium. Maybe we don't have to be here at all. Did not believe it, but with that fog staring him in the face. Rand turned his head to look at him, not speaking. Finally, he said, "Never mentioned Rodion to me, Matt." "Oh, hurt me," he muttered. Somehow or other, he meant to find a way back through that twisted doorway in Tyr. Presently, he pulled the gold Tarvalin mark from his coat pocket, rolled it across the backs of his fingers, and thrust it back. Those snaky folk were going to give him a few more answers, whether they wanted to or not. Somehow. Without another word, Rand rose, started toward the fog in an unsteady stride, his eyes fixed straight ahead. Matt hurried after him. "I do not want to do this." Rand plunged right into the dense mist, but Matt hesitated a moment before following. It had to be the power maintaining the fog after all, its edge boiling so, but never advancing or retreating an inch. Bloody power. No bloody choice. First step was a blessed relief. Cool and damp. He opened his mouth to let the mist moisten his tongue. 3 steps more, he began to worry. Beyond the tip of his nose was only featureless gray. He could not make out even a shadow that could be Rand. The sound might as well have not come from his mouth. The murk seemed to swallow it before it reached his own ears. Not even sure of his direction anymore. He could always remember his way. Anything might be ahead of him, or under his feet. He could not see his feet. The fog shrouded him completely below the waist. He picked up his pace regardless. Suddenly, he stepped out beside Rand into a peculiar, shadowless light. Fog made an enormous hollow dome hiding the sky, its bubbling inner surface glowing in a pale sharp blue. Radion was not nearly so big as Tyr or Cainham. The empty streets were broad as any he had ever seen, with wide strips of bare dirt down their centers, as if trees had grown there once, and great fountains with statues. Huge buildings